Alyssa Ashcroft, a woman whose goal was to get every bit of evidence that she could, no matter the cost. Trying to expose Umbrella for years, we're told that she was murdered 8 years prior to the events of Resident Evil 9. But who was Alyssa Ashcroft? And what caused her untimely demise? Well, let's go back. Alyssa was an investigative reporter for the Raccoon Press. She was one of the handful of people who escaped the disastrous outbreak that occurred back in 1998. A few years prior, back in 1993, was when Alyssa had joined the Raccoon Press as a journalist. She had become really good friends with another fellow reporter named Kurt. At the time, Kurt was investigating suspicious activities that were going on at a private hospital in the northwestern part of the Arklay Mountains. Because Kurt saw Alyssa's talent, he decided to recruit her and bring her along with him to investigate. Illegal drug testing had been going on at the hospital, funded by the Umbrella Corporation. The hospital's director, Albert Lester, was being bribed by an Umbrella researcher by the name of Greg Mueller. Albert Lester had a terminally ill wife by the name of Dorothy, so in an act to want her cured, Al Lester took the bribe and allowed Greg to test his experimental virus on cancer patients at the hospital in hopes that Dorothy would be cured as well. It turns out that for a time the test actually showed positive results, but ultimately everyone died and had turned into a zombie, including Dorothy. Coincidentally, Dorothy ended up killing Kurt while him and Alyssa were investigating the hospital. After this, Alyssa had been taken and had her memory suppressed by the Umbrella researcher Greg Mueller so that the events of what happened wouldn't be discovered. Some years later in 1996, Alyssa covered a story of a decomposed body on the shores of the Ames River, near the same hospital that her partner Kurt was killed at a couple years prior. Alyssa speculated that a certain corporation was dumping chemical waste into the river. In 1998, specifically in June, Alyssa got a tip on strange activity that was occurring at the Raccoon Zoo. Another character that we've seen before by the name of Ben Bertolucci was trying to get in on the action, but Alyssa ended up taking that investigation. She ended up working on other incidents as well that were going on in town at the time. She of course survived the events of that fateful night in Raccoon City. In the aftermath of the event, Alyssa wrote of what she experienced in an expose about Umbrella titled, "What is a BOW?", blowing the lid off of this horrifying project. The public had expressed interest in the article and had eventually led into the sterilization operation, aka the Raccoon Trials, which lasted for 5 years, from October 1998 to 2003. It ultimately ended with the US government's denial of having any affiliation with BOWs and deemed it as fictitious and conspiracy propaganda. Many years later, jumping forward to 2016, Alyssa Ashcroft had wrote an article discussing the strange disappearances that were occurring in Dolby, Louisiana over the past 2 years. A cover-up and quarantine of the affected region ended any search for the missing people. They were never listed among the dead. Now here's where some of our theories come into play. What made Alyssa intrigued into making an article about the disappearances? Louisiana is far from Raccoon City. It's far down south compared to the Midwestern town we all know. Did she research and find out about the connections being created by a former Umbrella member by the name of Brandon Bailey? Did she suspect he was still alive? Because in reality, disappearances happen all the time around the world. Why would she be so keen on looking into Dolby? Unless she knew about something we didn't. She can't really call the culprit out because the government would just snuff out her articles as nonsense like usual. It became a cover-up just like Raccoon City. Did Alyssa know that the man who constructed Oswald Spencer's mansion was the same as the one who constructed the Baker House, aka George Trevor? His company Trevor and Chamberlain constructed it, along with many other buildings throughout the decades. The company continued business well after George's disappearance in 1967. Seems a bit odd how he's been so prominent yet so obscure, being mentioned in RE7 and RE8 back to back. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about him in some way in RE9.
Also, Jack, who is another very unique character that we'll dive into eventually, had his home set up so elaborately. Why? Not to mention the questionable picture of the Arklay Mountains dated July 7, 1991 that can be found in Jack's house. Is there more going on than meets the eye? Also, Jack's daughter Zoe was given a new identity and told not to reveal any information on what truly happened in Dolby. She went back to having a normal life and works as a rookie reporter in New Orleans. Since Alyssa was looking into the disappearances around Dolby, we wonder if Zoe seeked out Alyssa after seeing her article that she made and explained to Alyssa about what she went through. Maybe Alyssa got Zoe the gig into becoming a reporter like her, or maybe Zoe wanted to get into something similar to her. Either way, Zoe and Alyssa are in a similar boat, not being able to truly expose what they both went through because both incidents became cover-ups. Alyssa made the story on Dolby in 2016, RE7's main story occurs in 2017, and Alyssa's death happened a year later in 2018. Makes you wonder if it could be connected even past the Raccoon City incident, and also include something she found out in Louisiana as well. Another thing to point out as a theory that could tie in with Alyssa in a sense, is the Baker incident report. Zoe states that she received an envelope in the mail, the sender unknown, but it's about Chris and his questioning towards the BSAA since the Baker incident, and asking why him and the Hound Wolf Squad are in Europe. But what was peculiar is that someone wrote the words "It's not over" on the back of it. Now this envelope Zoe receives would have been post Alyssa's death, but what if the sender was somehow Grace, since her mother opened her eyes into finding out the truth and someone was able to send that out to her? Could be looking too much into it, but still wanted to add it in anyways. Also, did Alyssa somehow find the president's assassination in Resident Evil 6 to be oddly connected for wanting to expose Umbrella and the government for what happened in Raccoon City? Even though she wasn't present in RE6, I'm sure her suspicions came up with some ideas to why it happened. Alyssa must have been following the breadcrumbs from the 1998 destruction of Raccoon City, the Terra Grigia panic, assassination of the president, and the Dolby incident all being cover-ups and strange occurrences. I wonder if she even looked into the family who were involved heavily in RE6. Knowing they had a hand in controlling the United States, the family, the connections, Umbrella, the government, even the BSA probably all came up in Alyssa's head connecting the dots. Who knows what truths and evidence she had on it all. Sadly though, it eventually caught up to her and resulted in her death. But I'm sure the clues she left behind for her daughter Grace will help her uncover the truth behind Raccoon City. And I feel it'll be bone-chilling to find out what it truly is.